know that our kids not only need to be immersed in Scripture so that they know the biblical narrative and they can faithfully follow Jesus, but they need to be prepared to recognize counterfeit uses of Scripture. Because the Bible is twisted and pulled in all sorts of different directions, whether it be through online sermons or through TikTok videos or through Instagram posts. Just several months ago, I saw this post that was it's a tweet, and it was retweeted by a bunch of people who call themselves Christians, and even I saw a number of administrators from Christian schools repost this as if it was a positive thing. And this is what this tweet said. In the Gospels, Jesus is asked 187 questions. He answers maybe 8 of them. He himself asks 307. Maybe faith isn't about certainty, but learning to ask and sit in the complexity of good questions. When you just take this at face value, it's like, whoa, never thought about that before. You're right, Jesus doesn't answer a lot of questions. Maybe there's not a whole lot that we can know with certainty. Maybe it's just about learning to ask and philosophically sit in pondering good questions. And now that shouldn't sit right with us, because if we are biblically literate, we know that biblical faith is not some blind, irrational leap into the dark. It's evidence-based trust in the God who we cannot see, because everything we can see points to him. And so we want to make sure that we are immersing our kids in Scripture so that they know the biblical narrative forward and backward. And when they encounter claims like this, they're prepared to pause, ask themselves, what have I just encountered? And then determine, is this faithful to the biblical narrative, or does it contradict it? Now, there's an ancient proverb that says, if you give a man a fish, you fed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, and you fed him for a lifetime. And now with most things that we do with the children that God has placed in our care, we understand the truth of this proverb. I'm pretty sure that none of you sitting here today have it as your life's goal to be cooking your son breakfast every day when he's 26 years old. It's probably not your life dream, okay? And I know most of you probably don't want your daughter living in your basement when she's 35. Okay, we always strive for independence because we know at certain ages we should not be spoon-feeding our children anymore. That's just not healthy. Yet for some reason, when it comes to instructing our kids in Scripture, we do all the work for them. We read a family devotional. We teach an engaging Sunday school lesson. But for some reason, when it comes to Scripture, we continually spoon-feed them. We hand out fish. I had this revelatory moment in my own teaching. I love teaching the Bible. Like when I was a teacher at a Christian school, my 2 favorite things were reading aloud to my students and teaching them Scripture. 2 favorite things. And one day, I had my students involved in this engaging and interactive lesson from the book of Numbers, if you can believe it. And everybody was super excited. They were around the classroom. They were doing things. They were learning. And you know when you have one of those moments where it's kind of like in the movies where everything around you pauses and you have this thought and you're like, oh my goodness. And that's what happened. It was like my students kind of froze and I had this thought, what are they going to do over the summer when I'm not here to plan Bible lessons for them? Are they going to have any daily interactions with Scripture? And I knew the answer without a doubt, that no. Outside of the family devotions they might have done, my students would not have really been engaged in a meaningful way with Scripture because I had been simply handing out fish. I had not equipped them with any skills to soundly read, interpret, and apply Scripture on their own. And so that's when I changed my game plan. The next day I came back to the classroom and I put down my school's Bible curriculum with its high energy, engaging, and interactive Bible lessons. I didn't abandon the curriculum. I still followed what we were supposed to be teaching. But instead of using the curriculum, I had my students open up their Bibles and we started reading together. And slowly, little by little, I trained them in skills of sound biblical interpretation. And as we went along, after a month or so, I started releasing some more of that responsibility to them. I had them break up into small groups, and they would read the passage in small groups and implement those skills we'd learned. Then after about a month of that, I'd have them read scripture independently and implement those skills, and then we'd come back together and talk through what they had learned. And to my shock, that year we were going through the Pentateuch, okay, the first 5 books of the Bible, not exactly the most thrilling sections. My students loved it because they finally had skills to take ownership in this. And the next year I walked down to the 4th grade teachers after the first quarter, and I kind of sheepishly said, how are my students doing? Like in Bible class, are they lacking any biblical knowledge? How are they compared to the students from the other 2 classes? And every single teacher said, we've never had kids that are this biblically literate, that are this excited about reading scripture, and that actually take the initiative to read it independently. And actually, just several weeks ago, my brother went to his annual physical, and his doctor is the dad of a former student of mine. And when this doctor realized who my brother was, he said, oh, my son had your sister in 3rd grade. And he is about to enter into his senior year, and he's already read through the Bible on his own multiple times. And it's so exciting for me to see, because we don't want to keep spoon-feeding our children. Because if we do that now, when they leave our homes, what skills are they going to have to seek God on their own? They're going to still be dependent upon us.